When you think of a flight attendant, what comes to mind? Maybe the perfectly pressed uniform, the calm voice over the intercom, or the glamorous idea of traveling the world for free. From the outside, it all seems like a dream job, a jet-setting lifestyle filled with adventure, hotel stays in foreign cities, and a front-row seat to the skies. But what if I told you that behind that polished smile and tidy aisle service is a job that's a lot more stressful, exhausting, and even dangerous than you think? Being a flight attendant might look like a fantasy on social media, but in reality, it often feels more like controlled chaos. Let's start with the basics. The schedule. Most people assume it's a regular 9 to 5 with long breaks in between flights. Not even close. Flight attendants often work erratic hours, bouncing between time zones with little rest. A single shift can last anywhere from 12 to 18 hours, and layovers might be as short as 6 hours. Just enough time to drag yourself to a hotel, close the blackout curtains, and try to trick your body into sleeping before getting back up to do it all over again. And forget about weekends or holidays. Airlines don't close for Christmas. In fact, holidays are usually some of the busiest and most stressful times to be in the air. While most people are sitting down with their families, flight attendants are thousands of feet above the ground, managing full cabins, holiday tantrums, and endless turbulence. But it's not just the hours. The emotional toll is real, and it's relentless. Flight attendants are expected to be customer service reps, safety officers, babysitters, mediators, and therapists all at once. Imagine handling a drunk passenger mid-flight while someone else is panicking in the bathroom and another person is yelling because their gluten-free meal didn't make it on board. Now imagine doing that at 35,000 feet with a smile while fighting jet lag and dehydration. There's also the constant pressure to appear perfect. Airlines have strict grooming policies. Nails, hair, makeup, posture, even how you walk down the aisle. It's part of the image, sure, but it adds another layer of stress. Many flight attendants report feeling like they're being watched and judged by passengers, managers, and even their own peers. It's not enough to be efficient. You have to look effortless while doing it. But perhaps the most disturbing part? The safety risks that no one talks about. From violent passengers to sudden medical emergencies, from mechanical failures to the rare but terrifying emergency landings, flight attendants are trained to handle the worst-case scenarios. But that training doesn't make the fear go away. They are the first responders in the sky, expected to stay calm when oxygen masks drop, when smoke fills the cabin, or when a fellow crew member collapses mid-flight. So yeah, maybe it's not the dream job you thought it was, but that's just scratching the surface. You might be thinking, okay, the job is tough, but surely they get paid well for all that, right? Unfortunately, that's another harsh truth hidden beneath the surface. The reality of flight attendant pay is often shocking, especially when you consider how physically and emotionally demanding the job is. Here's something most people don't know. Flight attendants are only paid for the time the plane is in the air. That means all those hours spent in the airport, during boarding, dealing with delays, or helping passengers find their seats. They're not getting paid for that. If a flight gets delayed for 3 hours on the tarmac, they're working the whole time, but their paycheck doesn't reflect it. Imagine clocking into your job and only getting paid for half of it. That's the norm in this industry. For new flight attendants, the starting pay can be as low as $20,000 to $25,000 a year. Many of them have to take on second jobs or rely on food stamps just to get by. Some even sleep in crash pads, shared apartments, or rented rooms packed with bunk beds because they can't afford rent in the cities they're based in. So while passengers sip wine in first class, many flight attendants are struggling just to pay bills. Then there's the psychological toll, something that often goes unnoticed because flight attendants are trained to smile through it. But that smile, it can hide a lot. The loneliness of constantly being away from home, the strain it puts on relationships, the jet lag that never really goes away, it adds up. You might spend one night in Tokyo and the next in Chicago, but you're alone in a hotel room, disconnected from family and friends. That kind of lifestyle takes a mental toll, and let's not forget about the pressure to stay silent. Flight attendants are often discouraged from speaking out about unsafe conditions or abusive passengers. Some are afraid to report incidents because they fear retaliation or losing their jobs. And yes, assaults do happen. Verbal abuse is common. Physical assaults, while rarer, are still disturbingly real. Just because you're in the sky doesn't mean you're safe. There's also a culture of glamorization that makes it harder for flight attendants to talk about these issues. If they speak up, it seems like they're ungrateful or spoiling the dream. But the truth is, they're doing one of the most underappreciated, emotionally taxing jobs out there, and they're doing it while pretending everything is fine. It's easy to look at a flight attendant and see the uniform, the poise, the polish. But what you don't see is the exhaustion behind their eyes, the toll of years spent in pressurized cabins, the relationships that didn't survive long-distance schedules, or the emotional weight they carry after every shift. And yet, many of them keep doing it. Not for the pay, not for the glamour, but for the passion. For the small moments that remind them why they started. But even passion has its limits. As if the emotional and financial strain weren't enough, there's a deeper, more insidious layer to the job that rarely sees the light of day. The toxic culture that exists behind the scenes in many airline companies. It's the kind of environment that silently eats away at morale. The kind that makes people feel trapped in a job that no longer feels safe, supportive, or even human. You see, flight attendants are often caught in the middle, between corporate expectations and passenger demands. Airlines push hard for performance, faster service, stricter appearance standards, higher customer satisfaction. But they often give very little support when flight attendants face harassment or abuse. There are stories of attendants being reprimanded for speaking up about violent passengers or being discouraged from filing formal reports because it might make the airline look bad. And let's talk about management. Favoritism runs deep in some airline cultures. Promotions, desirable flight routes, or even basic schedule preferences sometimes depend more on who you know than how well you do the job. Some senior crew members can make life very difficult for younger or newer attendants. The seniority system that's supposed to protect workers can quickly turn into a shield for toxic behavior. Even among crew members, the job can breed tension. You're working in tight quarters, under intense pressure, and with constantly rotating teams. One day you're with someone who makes the flight smooth and supportive. The next, you're paired with someone who makes you feel invisible or unwelcome. There's no stability, just constant change. And then there's the part no one talks about until it's too late. The toll on the body. Working at high altitudes for long periods of time, often with limited hydration, inconsistent meals, and constant movement, wreaks havoc on the body. Chronic fatigue, swollen legs, dehydration, and weakened immune systems are common. Radiation exposure from frequent flights at high altitudes. That's real too, and while it's low level, it adds up over the years. Long-term, the effects can be serious. Studies have shown higher rates of certain cancers among career flight attendants. The constant disruption of circadian rhythms, your body's natural clock, can mess with everything from metabolism to memory. And the emotional burnout, that's not just about feeling tired, it's about feeling empty, detached, lost. The irony is, many flight attendants love flying. They enter the industry wide-eyed, excited, and passionate. But what happens when that love is drained by years of systemic mistreatment, exhaustion, and silence? Too many end up stuck, afraid to leave, unsure what to do next, bound to the very lifestyle that's breaking them down. And the public? Most people never see any of this. They see the smile, the service, the polite instruction to fasten your seatbelt. But behind that polished professionalism are people who are just trying to survive another shift, another flight, another day in the sky. By now, you probably see flight attendants differently. But to really understand the hidden nightmare of this job, you have to listen to the people who've lived it. Some of the most sobering stories never make headlines. They're quietly shared among crew members or posted anonymously in online forums. Because speaking out can mean risking your job. There's the attendant who had to finish a long-haul flight with a sprained ankle because there was no replacement crew. The one who was harassed by a passenger reported it and then got taken off prime flight schedules as punishment. Or the veteran who, after 20 years of flying, found out she had cancer, likely linked to radiation exposure from all those hours at high altitude. These aren't rare cases, they're just the ones we hear about. And then there's the emotional weight that builds over time. Imagine comforting a passenger who just lost their spouse, or helping someone through a panic attack at 35,000 feet, while you yourself haven't spoken to your family in days, haven't slept properly in weeks, and you're running on nothing but coffee and adrenaline. It's the kind of emotional labor that never ends, but is almost never acknowledged. Despite all of this, there's one thing that keeps many flight attendants going: each other. The sense of camaraderie among crew members can be incredibly strong. When you're up in the air with nothing but your team, those bonds can feel like family. They've got your back during medical emergencies, when turbulence gets rough, or when a situation with a passenger turns tense. It's a kind of trust that's hard to explain, but it's often the thing that holds people together. And still, many flight attendants love the sky. They love the view from the jump seat during sunrise. They love the feeling of landing in a new city. They love helping people feel safe and cared for. That's what makes the dark side of this job so tragic. It takes something beautiful and slowly wears it down. So the next time you step onto a plane, look at the flight attendants around you. Remember that behind the uniform is someone who's probably exhausted, someone who's made sacrifices you'll never see, and someone who's doing far more than handing out drinks. They're keeping you safe, they're holding the flight together, and they deserve more than silence and a polite nod. They deserve respect, fair pay, support, and most of all, to be seen. Not just as symbols of service, but as real people navigating one of the most misunderstood jobs in the world. Because if we can see past the surface, the smile, the uniform, the illusion, we might just find the truth soaring above us all this time.